Hi everyone, my name is Shanti Feldhahn. Thanks for joining me to study the Kindness Challenge. And I mean that, thank you. This is a moment in our culture when kindness has never been more needed. And whether you're taking the Kindness Challenge to improve your personal or professional relationships or to make good ones great, this is a moment when I think you will be profoundly impacted by seeing the power of kindness at work in your life. Since we're going to be spending 6 sessions together, let me introduce myself. I'm a social researcher and a best-selling author, as well as a wife and a mom. I now travel and speak and write about those factors that make relationships thrive, but I didn't start out that way. I actually got an analytical graduate degree and I worked on Wall Street before moving to Atlanta, where we are now, and unexpectedly taking this right-hand turn. In the last dozen years, I've conducted 8 major, rigorous national studies investigating the little changes that make a big difference in lives and relationships. In all that time, what I found boils down to this. Whether we thrive in our life, whether we thrive in our relationships, is far more related to how we treat other people than how we ourselves are treated. That is so counterintuitive and so countercultural, but it is so important. And I think deep down, we all know that that is true. But so often, we don't live life that way. Why is that? First, let's just be honest. We are all imperfect people, and we are living in a culture that, unfortunately, fights against kindness. But even if it was just us, we don't always handle things well. There's a seed of selfishness in each of us, and kindness requires being others-focused and thinking about what is going on in the other person too. But sometimes someone is getting on my last nerve, and I frankly don't want to be kind. In this study, we're going to be talking through how to handle all of that. Second, we just don't know how much power kindness specifically has for transformation of us and those around us. We all want to enjoy our relationships, right? If we really grasp the power of living life this way, we would do it more often. And I can assure you from the research, if you want to improve your relationship with your spouse or romantic partner, get closer with your kids or in-laws, or completely change how you interact with that colleague or classmate who drives you crazy, kindness will get you there. But 2 other reasons are what this study is particularly designed to solve. We have no idea that there is a big gap between what we want, enjoyable relationships, and what we are actually doing. I think we all want to be kind, in theory. We all want to work and play well with others. We just have no idea how often we are unkind and sabotage those relationships without ever realizing it. Although there are a few exceptions, most of us, 95% of those surveyed, have some very similar blind spots. I'll be very transparent and give you one of mine. You'll hear shortly that one of the steps of kindness is to hold back negativity. When I first started this, I thought to myself, I'm not negative, until I started cataloging all the different types of negativity from the research, and I realized, oh my gosh, I am negative every single day. One of the 7 types of negativity is exasperation, and I get exasperated with my kids all the time. I love my kids, and I would never say, "You're an idiot," out loud, but that is what I'm saying. And that's just one example. In this study, we'll be looking at those blind spots and what each of us individually most needs to work on. And finally, partly because we have that blind spot, the other reason we don't live kind is that we just don't know what to do differently. And that is a lot of what we'll be doing together, practicing a specific, different way together. Okay, so what does that look like? Most of us think of kindness as being a nice idea, but sort of vague. You may wonder, what does kindness actually mean? Are there really specific types of words and actions that matter more than others? I've been studying that question for quite a few years. I actually started looking into this years ago when Christian author and speaker Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth shared with me an initiative she calls the Husband Encouragement Challenge. After that, when I did women's conferences, I would share her recommendations with women and see some powerful life change. So I started studying certain things more purposefully. What is it specifically that is leading to these remarkable results? I ended up experimenting with different types of actions, enlisting people to experiment with them, doing focus groups and interviews and before and after surveys over various periods of time. In the end, this became a major national study with more than 700 participants. You now know what I eventually concluded. What transforms relationships is kindness. And it turns out that kindness is made up of 3 specific things: holding back from being negative in what you say and what you think, giving praise and affirmation, and actually taking action in some way to do something generous or kind for someone. You will be putting those 3 things into practice as part of this study as you learn and discuss these things, and when you do what we call the 30-Day Kindness Challenge, which I really hope that you choose to do. I'll explain the 3 specific things you do in a moment in the final instructional section of today's video. But as you actually start this purposeful, specific effort to be kind to a specific person, especially if it is a challenging relationship, you'll find something remarkable happening. You'll find that suddenly you start to see all these ways that you yourself were being unkind or negative without intending to. You'll see that you weren't being as affirming as you thought, even when it was very warranted. You'll start to find yourself understanding much more about the other person and how to approach them in certain ways. And you'll find that your feelings about that other person will actually start to change. And as that progresses, you'll also see exactly what little changes will have the biggest positive impact for you and that specific relationship. And as you take those steps, things get even better, and so on in a positive cycle. You will see the truth for yourself of what I concluded from the research and explore more in the book, that kindness really is a superpower. Now, let's mix things up today. Normally, this is where we would end the video session for the day. The videos for the other sessions are all about 8 to 10 minutes long, but in this introductory session, I want to take an extra few minutes to share some specifics with those of you who are considering actually doing the 30-Day Kindness Challenge. I want to give you an outline of what you will specifically do and some key things we found in the research that make it work best and help you over any rough patches. So here's what you do. Begin by picking a date to start the 30-Day Kindness Challenge. You can start this process at any time, but if you're doing this in a group and if you're meeting weekly, my recommendation is that you start together the day after you meet to discuss session 2. So ideally, that would mean just over 1 week from now. This study is designed with that time frame in mind, and that interim time between now and then will also give you until the next session to think through a few ideas and learn a few specific things that will help you start well. For example, we highly recommend that you have a personal notebook or journal on hand to keep track of some of the things you discover that you most need to work on, or record what you tried and what happened. Hopefully, you will be doing the suggested reading in the book, The Kindness Challenge, and the extra time will also give you a chance to read a few specific things and identify what applies most to you. Next, pick a person to do this for. Usually this is someone with whom you want a better relationship, either someone that is a challenge or maybe just someone like a spouse or a child that you want to grow even closer to. Now, some of you may want to do this broadly in your community at large, and that's fine, but we would strongly suggest that you still pick one person to do this for. We found in the research that our eyes are opened much more clearly in many areas when we pick one specific person. Now, regardless of whom you choose, it is up to you whether you tell them what you're doing. Many of the people in our research did not, either because it wouldn't really be appropriate, like maybe they were doing it for a colleague, or because they thought it would be counterproductive because a person might think you are only saying that positive thing because you have to. But you know your relationship best, so do what will have the best impact in your situation. And if you're a couple and you are listening to this together, then you both know you'll be doing this. So be sure to assume the best of the other as you go. And assume the other person means those positive things they say, because we also found in the research that that was absolutely true. And also, have grace with each other's mistakes. Also, one other thing, guys. If you are a husband who is thinking of doing this for his wife, be aware that although this video study will focus on the main 30-Day Kindness Challenge, there is one little alternative way of doing this, one little shift that many men really appreciated, and the research found was particularly effective for husbands. Take a look at the Husbands chapter in the book, chapter 9, if you're interested in learning more about that, and decide whether you want to do the 30-Day Kindness Challenge that way instead. Okay. So now, all of you probably have your person in mind. For 30 days, here's what you do. First, say nothing negative about your person, either to them or about them to someone else, which is often where we sabotage ourselves. Just to give you an example, let's say you're a wife and you're doing this for your husband and he's a bit of a slob and it drives you nuts that he doesn't help much with the chores. For 30 days, you can't complain that he left his smelly workout clothes on the floor again. And you can't go to your girlfriends at work and complain about it there either. Say nothing negative about your person, either to them or about them to somebody else. But what if you're in a situation where negative feedback is unavoidable? Like if you need to discipline a child or to correct someone you're supervising at work. Just make sure you're constructive and as encouraging as you can be with no negative tone. Second, every day, find one positive thing that you can sincerely praise or affirm about your person and tell them, and tell somebody else. So if you're that wife, you can't complain that he's a slob, but you're looking for things to praise. And you notice that, you know what, he came home from work early to take the boys to soccer practice. So you thank him for that. And you go to work the next day and you tell your girlfriends, you know what he did yesterday? Third, every day, do one small act of kindness or generosity for your person. Maybe your husband is always rushing in the morning, so you go to make the coffee instead so he can take it with him, even though it means getting up a few minutes early. Maybe there's something he really needs to run by you on the phone and you do not have time, but you take the time anyway. Whatever it is, do a little action of generosity each day. And all of this is one-sided and unconditional, regardless of whether the other person responds or not. That's it. Those 3 things each day are the 30-day kindness challenge. It is so simple, but you will find that it is powerful. So we invite you to make the commitment to do the 30-day kindness challenge, either on your own or even better, with your group. And to make it easier for you, we have 30 days of reminders with tips and hints for each day that you can get from the back of the book or receive via email each day when you sign up at jointhekindnesschallenge.com. Now, just as a caution, be careful to avoid the trap of thinking that the emailed hint is the kindness challenge for that day. It isn't. It's just a reminder with an idea to help you and some tools to make it easier and more fun as you go. The challenge is those 3 things each day, regardless of whether you get the daily tips. We tested it and found that the emailed reminders help because they keep this front of mind and they give you creative ideas for how to do those 3 things. But it is those 3 things each day for 30 days that have the power to transform. Now, let me encourage you to realize that sometimes it is primarily powerful in you. Sometimes it takes a while for it to seem to impact the other person or the relationship, especially if it's been contentious over a long time. In our research, 89% of relationships improved in the 30 days, but that is not 100%. Sometimes you will be planting seeds that have to be watered for much longer than a month before they'll begin to grow, but don't give up. And that leads to my final point. Some of you will have a great time with this, and some may find it really challenging, that it is really difficult to do for that specific person. And I can almost guarantee you that if a relationship is difficult, things are going to come up that push your buttons and make you think, why on earth should I keep going? You are pushing back against the tide of our culture and years of habits that are not only ingrained in you, but ingrained in the person you're doing this for. You will mess up, especially at the beginning. There will be some times that you realize 5 minutes later, oh my gosh, that was a totally negative comment. There will be times something hurts your feelings and you lose it, or you just don't want to give praise because that person is being so frustrating. Or you try for a period of time and say, it isn't making any difference. Why should I keep going? So have a plan in place before any of that happens. Have a buddy you call when it gets hard. Remind yourself that this is a one-sided effort and that if you stop because there was not enough positive feedback in return, that would be conditional kindness, conditional love. Maybe reread one of the chapters that deals with that specific issue. Whatever it is, have a strategy to pursue so that you can get past the frustration or the mistake and move on instead of letting it derail you and this crucial effort you are making. Keep the end goal in mind. I know from experience how crucial that is. It reminds me of the choices that I would have to make when I was doing a specific diet or a fitness plan. Yeah, I slipped up. I gave in to temptation when I was out at that pancake place, and instead of the small egg white omelet, I had a stack of pancakes. If we're committed to something, then hopefully we don't say, well, since the day is shot already, I might as well have a tube of Oreos after lunch. No, we start over at lunch. It's the same thing here. If you slip up, just start over. And if it gets hard, you can get up and keep going. And if you do, you'll do better next time. You'll find it's easier the next time and the next. And pretty soon you'll find yourself responding so differently and wanting to keep going. You'll be building a competence at kindness that will transform your relationships. But even better, you'll find it changes you. I am really glad you're doing this with me. So let's get going. You'll be really glad you did.